Hey guys, let's talk about Chrysler starters. Now, unless you're just a hardcore Mopar fan, you may not be aware that Chrysler produced two different kinds of these old gear reduction starters. A lot of us, especially since the advent of YouTube, are familiar with the sound of these starters screaming away under the hood of different Mopars. Chrysler, Dodge, Plymouth. You've heard several of my videos where I'm grinding on something with one of these starters, but what some of you may not be aware of is that they made two different versions of this starter. Now, at first glance, these look just about identical, but there's quite a difference in them. First of all, most Chrysler starters interchange from like a slant 6 up to a 440. In fact, I think they all do, essentially. So there is no 440 specific starter, there is no 400 specific, 360 specific, 318 specific, slant 6 specific. You can take a 440 starter and throw it on a slant 6 and vice versa. They'll all work. That was something Chrysler did that just really simplifies things for us home mechanics. But we need to look at these starters here, and I'm going to point out some differences, how you can tell what you have here. Now, this starter on the left, this is an original, what they call a small frame starter. This was used on slant 6s and V8s through 1987 with some changes. Okay, basically your basic Chrysler starter. Now, through the years, from 60 through 87, there's some changes in the way that the housings are put together. Some had screws and nuts. Some were just sealed. Differences in how the magnets are retained right here. But nothing major, nothing really worth getting into right now. Some of them have more magnets than the others, but suffice to say, this original type starter, this was the slowest cranking starter. I mean slowest speed, very torquey. I mean, you just about can't make one drag. But these were a 1.5 horsepower motor. It had a 3.75 gear ratio on it, 3.75 to 1, I guess you would say. So it had a real steep gear ratio, so it just really crank anything, but it didn't spin very fast. Now this starter here, this is the starter that came out about 1974, and it was produced alongside of this starter through 87. This is a 1.8 horsepower, what they call a large frame starter. It's got a steeper gear ratio, a less steep gear ratio. This is a 2 to 1 gear ratio on this one, so it's got more horsepower, but it spins a lot faster. The quickest way to tell, without trying to look up part numbers or things like that, is to measure them. So take a measuring stick here. Got mine here. Let's measure this first starter. This is the original small frame. You'll see we got about, let's see, this one measures about 3¼ inches. And you're just measuring this black part. This is the field housing here. That's what you measure. So you got about 3¼ inches on that one. And you come over here and measure this one. This one's got just under 4 inches. It's between 3 and 3.5. I guess it would be 3¾ inches. There is what this one. So this one's going to be. You can tell I'm rusty reading a ruler, can't you? This one's 3¼ inches from edge to edge. This one's going to be 3¾ inches edge to edge. So that's how you tell what you got here. There's no real reason to go for either one of these, except if you got, like, these came on like 360s and 400s and 440s. So if you want the highest strength, speed starter that's going to pretty much crank anything, you want to go for a large frame. And explain to you why they did this. You may think, well, why didn't they just quit making that one? Well, they came out with this large frame starter because in 74 because, you know, they're starting to get emission controls and smog and things like that, and they were detuning the engines and making them run hotter and stuff like that. So these big old 360s and 400s and 440s, you know, they'd heat soak. They're running so hot anyway, they'd heat soak. So they would tend to spin and spin and spin when you're trying to crank them from a hot start. And that was what Chrysler referred to internally as a hard to start engine. So that's why they came out with this larger starter. They were masking that. Their idea was, their solution was to spin the engine, you know, much faster with the starter so that it didn't seem like it was taking so long to start. You see what I'm saying? If they had this small slow speed starter on it, that thing, you know, it might be going for, you know, 10 seconds before the engine would catch. And this one, you know, just and it's running. So it's just a kind of a sleight of hand move there, I guess, on Chrysler's part. But that's why they did it. They just tried to spin the engine over faster to get it cleared out and cranked up. So, but these two starters interchange perfectly through all engine families, slant 6 to small V8 to large V8 on Chryslers. So that's how you know what you got. That's how you know what to look for. The numbers, they got numbers stamped on them, but unless you're just restoring one, you don't really necessarily have to be concerned with the numbers. But I'll show you where the numbers are at. Hopefully you can see it. They're stamped into this housing here. So it says Chrysler, and this one's a 3755900, and this number under it is a date code. I think that's a 1. It's either a 1 or a 4. This one over here actually might be easier to see, so let's take a look at it. And boy, these suckers are heavy, and that's going to lead me to my next part of this video. Let's see here. There's that one. Where is it? You see it? You might see it. There it is. Okay. So the light's not too good down here. There we go. This one's a 4111860. And you see that number there, that 176, that's the date code on it. That means the 17th week of the 6th year of the decade. So it could mean 76, but I think this one may be an 86. It's going to mean either or, so you just basically got to figure it out on your own. But that's how you tell the date code on it. But otherwise, wiring and everything, they're totally interchangeable. So now let's look at another starter. This is what Chrysler started using in model year 88. This is this Japanese starter. It's a very good starter. It's a lot lighter than the other one. And the only drawback to this starter, if you've heard any of these 90s trucks, Dodge trucks and vans on up, you notice they don't sound like a Chrysler anymore. They sound like a, I don't know what, a Toyota or something like that starting, but they work very well. These starters last a long time. The only thing that usually goes bad on them is up there in the solenoid. The contacts will wear out and you'll hear them click, 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 click. You have to click them 10 or 12 times before they start to start. But that's easy to fix. You don't have to condemn the whole starter just to fix that. But a lot of people ask about these starters. They're confused. They say, well, one of these starters fit on a slant 6? Yes. Will it fit on a 318? Yes. Will it fit on a big block? Yes. When you live near a highway, you hear that all the time, day or night. The only thing I hadn't heard lately is but anyway, guys, as far as your question about interchanging these, you can put the same starter on a slant 6, 318, 360, 383, 400, 413, 440. You can put them on any of them. They'll directly interchange. So I've got 3 different kinds of starters. I've already got one on the Plymouth up there. I've got the old style mid 60s on it, and then I'm going to put one of these other starters on the truck, and I'm going to put one on my Dart Sport one of these days. So in this next video, guys, I'm going to set this spare engine I have up here is a test bed. I'm going to get my battery, and I'm going to put battery cables on this, and we're going to test these starters and let you listen to the different sounds of them. That'll be fun. So tune back in.